So speaking of businesses and entrepreneurship, and I feel like you got bit by the bug.
What bug?
The entrepreneurship.
Oh.
Since we've been married, but you are technically an entrepreneur. So you're a podcaster. You're looking for that 8 figures or 8,000 or 800 or $8.
Not $8. Get that
$8 on the
Tony
podcast. But then also you are a mom, a brand new mom. So how do you manage that?
We're 18 months in.
We are 18 months in.
I guess in the grand scheme, it's brand new.
You're an entrepreneur. You have a full-time job and you are a full-time mom. How do you manage it all?
I manage it by having a nanny. Has helped tremendously.
Not here all day, every day, but
I think also having a husband that doesn't feel like they're babysitting their kid is extremely helpful. All shade to the fathers that do. So having a partner in things, and how else do I balance it? Knowing that it's like it just has to get done. I know that sounds like that's not telling me how, and I understand that, but there's certain things that just has to get done.
what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the More Than a Side Hustle podcast, where we help 9-to-5ers create more impact, income, and influence outside their jobs. And hopefully today is no different. My name is Anthony.
And I'm Jhanilka, and we want to thank you for coming back week after week. We also want to ask you to make sure that you're leaving a review, sharing, subscribing, letting people know what we're doing and talking about over here on More Than a Side Hustle podcast. So thank you once again.
Someone said you should only ask them to do one thing. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's like, I don't know where you're listening to me at. Okay? So if you're on YouTube, then you'll subscribe. If you're not listening to it through like a podcast channel, then there's no way you can leave a review. You can't leave a review on YouTube. So I guess it just depends as to where you're listening to us at.
So
what are your thoughts?
What do you want them to do? Always I like to ask. I'm just curious. I'm fine with that.
Depending on where you're listening. If you're listening where you can leave a star and write, and you can also write a comment.
She is very
write a review.
So why does Apple rating says 4.9 out of 5 if all of our reviews are 5 stars?
All our reviews are not 5. You can see that one down there.
We got a 1-star review from someone?
Yeah, I guess.
What they say?
They didn't say anything. It's just people write, you know.
Oh, man. They rated us 1 star but didn't say anything. So when you have and the thing about this is that when you have a business, right? Your job as a business owner, as a CEO, and as a side hustler is to find out what you did right and what you did wrong. So if you leave us 1 star, how do I know what I did wrong? You just being an a-hole and just leave us 1 star.
Don't matter to me.
And then don't leave a comment. You're always like, it don't matter. Nothing matters to her.
Because I am not for everyone, and that is okay with me.
That is okay with you. We had 5 stars and somebody left us 1 star. If you left us 1 star, I really want to talk to you. Like, I want to interview you.
It would be very weird that you're still listening, though.
That's true, too.
That would be bizarre.
But people do that.
Imagine. I know.
They did. People, there was, and this, we'll get to the topic in a second, but there was this guy said, he did a YouTube video, and he said 49 minutes of, like, foolishness. And he said, 49 minutes of foolishness, how would you even know that? So that means you sit there and you listen to the 49 minutes of foolishness.
You felt the whole thing was foolish.
And you felt the whole thing was foolish, and you left the comment. Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
I mean, listen, and the other part of it is like, yeah, I'm open to feedback, but there is no feedback that you can tell me, you know, maybe I made you feel bad, maybe I insulted you in some way. I don't know. There's no feedback with it, so I can't harp on that.
And that's the thing, too. Like, funny because Cameron and Mace, they recently got a deal for 8 figures for their podcast.
They did? I'm excited for New York because they are hilarious.
and it's crazy because they are offending people left and right, and it
works for them.
And I love the fact that you could do what makes you comfortable. But then you still gotta be mindful of things you say on these shows.
Of course. Who gave them the deal?
I forgot who it was, but they got 8 figures.
That's amazing because what was Mace doing before? I mean, Cam too, really. I mean, but I feel like he's a bit more around than Mace. Where has Mace been for the past few years?
When are we going to establish ourselves as podcasters? Like, when are we going to do this? We're almost at 100 episodes. People are giving out 8-figure deals. Where's our $8 deal at? I only want $8.
Not $8. You got to start somewhere, but I don't want $8. Can I start at 800? I can start at 800.
Like, $8. We can start at 800.
But congrats to them. That's amazing. That show is hilarious, and it's not for everyone because it can be a little harsh, like you said.
Yeah.
But they know who their clientele is.
So what we're going to do, we're going to do something a little different in this episode, right? So you guys hear me. My name is Anthony. You guys, most of the episode is sometimes me talking. Jhanilka's responding, but I'm like the main voice of the episode of the podcast. Most of the clips are about me because I drop a lot of gems in my opinion. But I said it would be nice because you guys know our story as a couple, but me interviewing my wife Jhanilka on this episode as an individual.
We have no idea where this is going.
Why not?
No idea where this is going.
That's the thing. That is the thing about doing the
beauty
thing.
of it, I guess.
That's the thing about having our own show. So you are very blunt, and we're going to go right into that. Like, why are you so blunt? Where does that even come from?
I mean, you see, this is why people know questions before they go into interviews so they can be prepared.
This is how interviews go.
Yeah, so sometimes they know it ahead so they can prepare. Where does my bluntness come from? I can only say my environment.
Take it easy.
Because
you're in an interview. I'm interviewing you. Take it easy.
What do you mean take it easy?
You're overly aggressive towards the mic. If you guys
my God.
If you guys are watching this on YouTube right now, she was
overly aggressive is very relative.
Yeah.
But straightforward, blunt, straightforward. I would just probably say from my mother. I can only assume it's from my environment, but when I think about what my mother says to this day, her biggest thing is you can never say I didn't tell you. It's always what she says to other people, like in situations. You can never say I didn't tell you. Is always what she says. So I follow that to an extent. Now, I feel like I was a bit more blunter younger, but as you get older, you realize that everybody doesn't need to, like they may not need to hear it, or they may not be in the place to receive it. So I do second guess a bit sometimes what I say and who I say it to. So, but I would say my straightforwardness and bluntness maybe, I guess, will come from my mother then.
You guys have a very unique relationship.
What's unique about it?
Unique, where I was talking to one of my friends, and he said, sometimes I think you're jealous of the relationship you have with Jhanilka has with her mother. And I said, I could probably see that. How'd you guys become like, so they probably don't know that you speak to your mother a lot.
A lot of people speak the same amount. So yeah, my mother still lives in Brooklyn. We live in Dallas. So I speak to her maybe about 2-3 times a day. And now I see her maybe 2-3 times a day on FaceTime because of Alani. Before, I've always spoken to her that same amount. I don't think the amount has changed, but
why you guys talk so much?
We're catching up on life. I don't know.
4 or 5 times a day?
I said 2-3. How did you get to 4 or 5?
If I counted on one hand, how many times you guys speak? It's at least 5 times.
I literally, how? 2 or 3. Usually it's in the morning when I'm driving to the gym. She's already at work. I'm just playing it through. Then she's at lunch.
So y'all talking about, you spoke before you went to bed?
Not anymore. See, that's the thing. We used to have night calls, but now we don't speak in the evening anymore because it's like if she's on the phone with Alani, but me and her, we don't catch up in the evenings anymore.
So now it's, so there's 2 sets of calls now. Her and Alani and her and you.
There's different calls happening at different times, yeah. So in the morning when I'm driving to the gym, obviously Alani's home sleeping, so that's just us catching up at 12 minutes max. Then she'll call during lunch. Sometimes that's for Alani if she's around. Sometimes that's for me. So we'll catch up another 10, depending. And then around, I'm just thinking through the times, like 4 something, that's just for Alani. That's 3. Okay, now there is a 4th call as well after dinner. So that's 4. 2 for me, 2 for Alani, and all could be for Alani if time allows.
So why do you guys talk so much on the phone?
We're catching up. I don't know why. I never thought about why, but we've always had that relationship. I couldn't tell you why we had that relationship.
Because I think back to my upbringing, where I don't have that same relationship with my mother, obviously, but I don't think a lot of people do have that similar relationship.
It could be a female-male thing too.
That could be it. Do you think it's because of you're a female? You think if you was a guy, you would have the same relationship?
I don't know. I mean, there's no way to tell. And I'm an only child as well. That's what you thought the whole time? That didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, I'm an only child as well. So I'm trying to think of people that are only children in my family, but they're kind of still home, so it's hard to tell. But yeah, I'm an only child, so that probably plays into it. And I feel like with our Caribbean Hispanic background, family is very big. Nothing against Americans. I'm not saying I don't know how Americans operate, but it seems like it's not as big as it is when it comes to a Caribbean Hispanic culture. Everything is family, like Vin Diesel says.
Well, it's everyone, because I think Jewish people, I think Asian people,
That's
I think
true.
West Indians, Caribbeans, as you said,
outside of American.
Everybody outside of American, everything is family.
Now, don't get offended. You can be like, well, I'm American and I'm close to my family. Got it. I'm not saying that. But generally, yeah.
So, growing up in the projects, and I grew up in the projects, but we also had two separate lives. Do you feel like growing up in the, I don't want to call them the projects, but that's what they are, the housing authorities.
Why don't you want to call it the projects?
I don't know. It just sounds so negative. I'm tired of it.
In my projects. What does project mean? Oh, like you're an experiment?
Could be. Now you're talking about
call it projects.
Now you're talking
I just
about
wonder.
who cloned Tyrone.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Growing up there, what about it?
I was asking, do you feel like that made you? Is that the reason why you're very directed? Because it's where you grew up?
No.
Or your upbringing more?
No. No one ever believes I was born and raised in the projects, so I don't think it had a.
Why not?
They just don't stereotype me as somebody from the project, as a project girl.
I don't know if I agree with that.
What are you talking about?
I think you're a very project girl.
You're making that up to be different on the podcast. You do not feel that way. Usually when I used to tell people, they were shocked that I was born and raised in a project. So I don't know that it played much of a part. I didn't go outside until, I don't even know, going into high school. Prior to that, I never went outside. So I don't know how much. Do I think it impacts how you think about life? Probably. Do I think it impacted my life more than my family did? Not necessarily. And I actually had this conversation recently, now that you bring this up, with my girlfriends out here, when they're saying, they were watching videos and stuff, and it said, no matter what you do with your kids, most of their impact will be their outside environment. So their friends, their school, all that type of stuff. And I agree to an extent, but I was saying, when I look back, most of my impact is really from my family and cousins. Like, my friend, of course I had friends, but my friends, and even to this day, are integrated into my family. I don't feel like friends made such a big impact on me as much as cousins did. So if ever I went out, it was with, at least one cousin was out with me at all times almost. We all used to always go out together. So I find that, yes, the social setting and environment does impact our children and our lives. But for me, when I think back, my family played a bigger part than my social life did.
Social life,
So that's why I don't think the projects had a big impact. That's what I was saying.
So if your social life, you decide that you want to go to, what do you do full time?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a mental health therapist.
Did you always want to do that?
I wanted to be a teacher. My mother's a teacher.
What made you say you're not going to be a teacher?
She doesn't remember saying this, but she said, don't be a teacher. They don't make enough.
Do they not make enough teachers?
Depends on where you go. If you go to the charter school system, they pay pretty well.
So she told you this at a young age?
Yeah, and I remembered.
Wow. You decided not to be a teacher because your mother said it?
Yeah, but I always still wanted to work with kids.
That's the thing about being a parent. You got to be careful what you say. She could have been
joking.
joking. She could have been joking.
Yeah, it's like probably in talking just past.
Now you're like, I'm not going to be a teacher because you said not to be a teacher. Now look, you're not a teacher.
Yeah.
Well, teaching actually came back around. We'll talk about that. Yeah. So you decide not to be a teacher. Because your mother said. And
I knew I wanted, at first it started like in high school, it was like psychologist. And then when I got an understanding that was a doctor and all that, I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to go to medical school or anything like that. I wanted to just work with kids. I worked with kids, and then in working with them, I realized that a lot of the issues started at home. So I'm like, okay, I want to work with adults. And working with kids is very finicky when it comes to therapy with what you can and can't tell the parents, what you can and can't share, so on and so forth. So I kind of maneuvered over to just working with adults. That's how it went.
What was that title?
What was that title?
Title.
So I got my master's as a mental health counselor. In Texas, they call it a licensed professional counselor.
So you got undergraduate degree, and you got a master's, and you got 2 licenses.
Correct.
In Texas and New York, because you always say that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. With Texas, the way that Texas kind of works, they're with a lot of other states, so the LPC can go to multiple states outside of Texas. New York, LMAC is only for New York. It can't go anywhere else.
So New York has their own license.
Yeah. For this specific.
But Texas license is distributed amongst
a few other ones. LPC is known in a few other states.
So every time you transfer states, you gotta get a new license. If you wanted to.
If you wanted to, like the LPC may go to other states, but then I may go to something like California, and they call it something completely different. So I got to take the test and transfer over, give them my information for my master's program, things like that. That's what I have to do here.
So you got your undergraduate degree at
Westbury.
And then you got your master's at Hofstra.
Uh-huh.
And then you got licensed in New York and then licensed in Texas. Because you down in Texas in 2016. And that's why, in the last episode, that's why my math was off. Because I was thinking...
We started the business right away.
We started the business in 2016, but it was actually in 2017. That's why I kept saying 7 years. So if you guys are sitting here, and you listen to the maybe 2 episodes ago, and I was sitting there trying to calculate the years. So you get your master's, and you knew that you wanted to get your master's when you were in undergrad?
Yes, I knew that to be a therapist, you had to get your master's.
Okay.
You can't,
yeah. What year did you graduate?
With my master's?
Undergrad, 2010?
10. Because then my master's was 2012.
Because I was going to go for my master's because the market was bad and I couldn't get a job.
A master's in IT?
Master's, bachelor's of business.
So that's a bachelor's.
Bachelor's. I had a minor in business, and I was going to get a master's in business association, specializing in IT, information technology management, ITM. I took all the prerequisites, and I passed, and I decided not to go.
Yeah, for me, there is no not going. You can't be a therapist without having your master's. So,
but if you didn't have your master's, what would be the title of your job?
I don't know. You'll be doing. I couldn't even tell you in the. I don't know. I'm so far removed as to if I didn't have my master's, I don't know what that would look like. But like at least with this master's, you could open up your own practice. Even though you're not a doctor, you can have those things. You can be on insurance panels, that type of stuff. Without that, you'll be working under someone or maybe in a hospital or something. I'm not sure what a BA with just psychology looks like at this point.
Because usually a psychologist, you want to be a teacher, professor or something.
You could be that or do therapy full time. Yeah.
So what's the difference between what you do and what everybody else on social media does right now?
Credentialing, I get. What does everybody else do? Are people therapists on social media?
I think everyone has a title on social media.
But are they calling themselves therapists?
Yeah, people call themselves, they do.
They call themselves life coaches. A little different. I don't think they call themselves therapists without the credentialing behind it. At least I haven't seen
What's the difference between a therapist and a life coach outside of the credentialing?
I would say a life coach focuses, they don't have any, not any, but they don't really go based off of technique. It feels like maybe like a friend is talking to a friend versus me using CBT, DBT, things that actually have been proven. Yeah, you don't have to know.
What is that?
Cognitive behavior therapy, like things that are actually proven that works to move you along, basically, versus me just not going off of a whim, because I think they have some type of, not credentialing, but some type of hours they do, but it's not the same amount of time that they put in. So maybe it's like I wouldn't even say a doctor and a nurse, because nurses do a lot more than doctors. I couldn't even say what to compare it to, really. A life coach.
So a life coach, they're probably walking you through to an end result or a goal, versus a therapist is probably, they're giving you feedback, but then therapists don't tell you what to do, right? No. So a life coach will probably be telling you kind of what to do.
What to do.
Yeah. So that would be the difference, you think?
I don't know any life coaches, so I'm not really sure what that looks like. I know you don't have to go to school for that. So you want to be a life coach?
No. I'm just trying to figure out the difference between the two, because everybody talks about life coaches and stuff like that. I guess it's just like being a financial expert or a
financial
money coach.
Advisor. Yeah.
No, financial advisors, you have to be licensed.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. So a financial expert versus a financial advisor.
Experts are, people define expert as it depends on how you define expert. It could be a self-made expert, meaning I think I'm the expert, or I was
said
told.
How people was calling themselves on social media.
Or are other people calling me experts?
Either way, you didn't go to school for that or get any credentialing for it. Whoever's calling who.
That's true.
Right? That's the difference.
That's true. So you get this degree, you go get your master's, and what do you do after that? Or what do you think you want to do after that? Do you know what you want to do after you get a master's?
After I got a master's, where was I?
Because master's is huge. I don't know if it's still huge today, but having a master's.
Know either. I feel like the way about life in general, though.
What?
Like, things are huge that happen in life or in our lives, and I'm like, okay, cool, keep pushing. Like, it doesn't feel as huge. Maybe because when you accomplished it, you don't necessarily sit down and smell the roses like, wow, I did that. But also, I did it so long ago, it doesn't feel the same way. Like, this is 11 years ago that I got my master's. So it
That's
doesn't,
true.
It's like, maybe I need a doctorate now to feel that same, like, I wouldn't do that at this point in my life. But yeah, it doesn't feel the same way. But
if you look around you, how many people have masters?
I know a good amount of people, actually.
Oh, there you go.
So maybe I surround myself with people that have masters, because I could name more than half the people that I hang with have masters.
So maybe it's a generation as well. Like, getting a master's is not a big deal anymore, just based on where we are today. People aren't thinking about going to get, number one.
People aren't thinking about a regular 9 to 5.
They're not thinking about college. They're not thinking about going to get a higher education. They definitely not thinking about
That's
9 to 5. So
that's true. We'll see what
next
happens
couple years,
when it's Alani's turn.
Next couple years, it won't be no master's degrees. Unless you want to be licensed for certain things.
Yeah.
But people don't even want to pursue that
can't,
type of stuff.
like, so in psychology, you're not making any money if you are not at least a master's.
What's not any money, though?
Like, you're going to make under $50K.
Okay. If you're not licensed.
If you don't have a master's, it's probably under $38K.
Can you get a license without having a master's?
No.
So you have to. So if you don't have a master's, you're going to make like $50K. And then you got to go spend another $50 to $70K to get a master's.
You just said the master's. What do you mean? The master's is the...
You make under $50K if you don't have a master's. Right. Then you have to spend, to get the master's, you got to spend $50.
Depending on where you go. Maybe you go to public and not private.
How much was your master's degree?
Like $68,000.
$68,000. So you got to spend $68,000.
That's a private school. You don't have to go to a private school.
How much do you make after spending $68,000 and then getting your master's?
How much did I make?
Yeah.
I was making like $45,000.
So you spent $68,000 to get your master's, and then you made what?
Like $45,000.
To me, it's not an equal trade-off.
Duh. If you know 1 + 1 = 2, you know that's not.
You know that you were only going to make less than $50,000. You just said you make $50,000 if you don't have a master's.
No, that's why. Then I re-said it, and I was like, it's probably under $38K. Let me rephrase that. Sorry, it's probably at like $38K.
And this is 11 years ago as well.
That's true.
To add context,
years ago. It probably is like 38, or you're like at an hourly or something like that if you do not have a master's. So master's is like 50 plus. And so depending on what school you go to, how much you spend on the master's. I didn't apply on time for Brooklyn College, so I didn't make it.
So you ended up spending
I could have waited a semester, but I didn't want to. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up spending $68K to go to Hofstra, and I do not regret any part of it. I loved my master's program.
Well, you paid it off, and you're using it today.
Yeah, either way, I loved it regardless if I didn't pay it off.
But you're also using. A lot of people get these degrees and they don't use it.
That's very true. I still use, in my role, I need to have my master's too.
So you get your master's, you start making $20 an hour, give or take.
Give or take
$20 an hour, and what are you doing during that time? Because you have a master's. In my opinion, when you get a master's, you're like, I'm the man. I got a master's.
Oh, that's not how it was. Not necessarily. So that's the thing. Not necessarily in the therapy field. It's not like it's not a field you go in to make bank. Honestly, it's not one of those things. And so then you have to. So they need to
lower the price of the master's degree if they know you're not gonna make money.
Right. So I was working. I got a job where I was interning at. So then after you get your master's, you have to work a certain amount of hours under a supervisor to get licensed and then take the test. It's like 1,200. I don't remember, 1,200 or 1,500 hours.
Internship.
Yeah, but you get paid. So this is my job, but I'm working under someone. Yeah. It's my job, but I'm working under someone. So since I got a job from my internship, it's like, yay, I don't got to go find somewhere else to get my hours. So let me stick this through. And that's what it was. And I started working inpatient at a psych ward, which was just...
What does that mean? What does inpatient mean?
Crazy. Inpatient
I don't think you should use the word crazy along with psych ward, but...
No, it was a crazy adjustment for me because I was
Can't use the word crazy.
Oh my God. I was originally interning outpatient. So what happens is the outpatient patients are a bit more stable, meaning you can be out of the hospital and maybe you're going to a program 3 times a week, 5 days a week, something to keep you to get a job or just readjust back into the community. Okay. When someone is inpatient, that's a higher level of care, meaning that they're in the hospital requiring 24 hours of eyes on you, essentially, giving you medication, that type of stuff. And so I originally was interning outpatient and the job offer was inpatient. And I think it was working like Sunday to Thursday or something.
What were you doing?
Inpatient?
Yeah.
So my role there was I was running groups there. So, they have different activities that go on. So I run group on the inpatient unit, had to do admissions, discharges.
You throwing a bunch of terms that I don't know.
Documentation.
Okay.
When you go to the ER, they're going to have you fill out paperwork and stuff. So as the rehab counselor, I had to fill out paperwork with you when you got there to find out your goals, that type of stuff. What are you doing outside of this? I also was working on a special unit where they were piloting a program, which was called First Episode Psychosis. So the goal was to, if this is the first time you're experiencing any psychosis or any anxiety, if we can hook you up to a program so that you don't come back and become what we call like a revolving door patient, that you keep coming back to the hospital, And usually the first episode psychosis was around college. There was a lot of college-age programs. So the hospital I was working with also had a huge program with different colleges in the area to also help them adjust back to college when they left the unit.
So these were college-age people who were seeking
help. That's where I spent most of my time. Not necessarily seeking help. Some of them were involuntary admissions, and some of them were voluntary. Involuntary means that they take you in, like your family, friends, the school. You're having some type of psychotic break.
What type of stuff were you seeing now on a daily basis?
Either people with depression, with anxiety, with bipolar or schizophrenia. Those were.
So you were seeing this as it was happening. So someone that was schizophrenic, you would see them having episodes, I guess is what they call it. Mm-hmm. I saw it on TV or something like that. Or episodes.
Yeah, that's the word, episodes. You would see them, and then their family will come, and we work all as a team. The psychologists, the psychiatrists, the rehab, the nurses, what's happening with them, what we're doing, etc. The goal is to get you out stably, of course, but sometimes people were there longer, and sometimes people had quick turnarounds.
What was the craziest thing you saw?
I don't even remember this. Did I block that out? Craziest thing I saw?
Yeah.
I mean, it became standard sometimes. If someone had to be not locked down, but kind of like locked down onto a bed so that we can give them a needle. What is the wording? That's not the exact wording of it, but that means they were being aggressive, and we had to call people in. So it would take like 10 people to take them down and give them a needle, like usually right by your leg or butt, because it gets to your bloodstream quicker.
So we're dating at this time, right?
Yeah, I think I was a fiance.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember exactly.
So I'm trying to keep
there. I'm
trying to keep me outside the conversation, but I also want to have it focus on you. So what's your mentality seeing this stuff every day, all day during that time? Because I don't know if I can handle it.
We definitely were dating. I don't know if we were engaged, but yeah, we were definitely dating. Mentality. So I don't really remember at this point because that was so many years removed, but it became a norm. I think going there every day, 5 days a week, it became a norm. And I know you hear it, you're like, oh my God, you think that it's worse than it is. Yes, they were having episodes and stuff, but it's not like they're, I don't know how to say it, like staying psychotic for 10 hours straight, that they can't hold a conversation with you and that you can't do. The hardest ones actually was the geriatric units. I used to go there sometimes, and the geriatric patients tend to be very aggressive.
What's geriatric?
Older. So 65 and older, I think is considered geriatric, but we're looking at 75 and older. They have dementia, so they tend to be very aggressive, or they tend to be kind of nasty towards Black people because they like because they're very old, and back in their day, Black people
racist.
Were not. Yeah,
that's what you're trying to say.
Back in their day, we weren't around them, so they would be nasty sometimes. But it kind of was like, yeah, he doesn't know.
White,
not all the time.
People?
I wasn't always on a geriatric unit.
Like something was gonna happen to you.
Sometimes, but usually the more aggressive people, they had like a staff that would stay with them one-on-one the entire day. So like if they weren't called security guards, but if you want to call it that, yeah. So if we were running a group or something, the person would be in the room at all times.
So you weren't ever by yourself with anyone?
Sometimes I would meet with them individually, but I would know who to meet with individually. Okay. Like I'm not going to be, and like I said, I was on this special unit for majority of my time there, that we actually walked the campus with some of them. And I would be the one that would do that with them. And the hope wasn't they didn't run away, which they never did. But
how long were you there for?
How long was I there for? I gotta check my resume. 3 years?
So 3 years or there so. And you go
to a managed care company, which is where I'm at now.
So this is your current job today?
This is my current job now. Yeah, I'm at a managed care company. 8 years.
8 years? That's
yeah, 8 years.
So you leave you leave the psych ward and you go to the managed care. What is the difference between?
And the only reason I knew about it, so managed care basically is they manage the care essentially. So when you go to the doctor and you have a referral for your knee, and they have to check with your insurance to see if they'll pay for it. That's exactly what managed care is, but on the psych side of it. So when they go into the hospital, they have to call the insurance and say, "Hey, Anthony is here because of A, B, and C. This is what we're doing. Are you guys going to pay?" And based on the information that the hospital tells us, we decide, okay, we'll give him 2 days. Okay. And then every time they have to keep calling us back to update us on different things as to what they're doing, how you're progressing, to see if we'll continue to pay. That's
and are
what
you using your master's for this role?
Yes, you have to have a master's for that role.
Okay. And if you don't, what would your role be?
You won't be doing the role. So you can work in managed care in another capacity, but not specifically with getting clinical information and making a decision on if I will pay for somebody's clinical services.
What's the best thing about your job and the worst thing about your job?
I'm not in that exact role anymore, but I did that role for 3 years. But I'm not in that exact role that I just explained anymore. I think I found it interesting. It was a challenge in some of them that were like, I would approve it, but then if you don't really know, you take it to a doctor and they say like, no, based on this criteria, I don't think they meet it. And I'm like, okay, well, doctor obviously takes precedence over our decisions, and we'll have to go back and tell them. And then the hospital can appeal it, and you kind of go back and forth on why they think we should pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. What I hated about it, I don't think there was anything I necessarily disliked about it. No, I can't think of anything right now.
But you're not working directly with people anymore.
No.
So
I was working directly with people, and then I left that, which I felt I needed a break at that point anyway.
Why?
Because even though I didn't find it difficult going inpatient, it feels like a lot.
Mentally? Like dealing with that type of stuff every single day?
Yeah, I guess at some point mentally it becomes mentally draining. And then like sometimes I covered on other units that weren't as nice, if you will, as my units. And so those were older units, and they had people that were constantly in and out. And that was a bit more scary, if you will, going on to those units sometimes.
So you feel like you took a lot of it home?
I don't really know if I took a lot home, though. No. Do you remember me ever feeling... Yeah, I don't really feel like I took a lot of it home. No.
You didn't show me. I don't know exactly what you were keeping hidden or what's going to come out
what you had inside
5-10 years of what may show up. But from what I've seen, you didn't take any of it home. But
yeah,
I mean, we all keep things that we don't want to continuously show that maybe a burden on us.
I just knew that I didn't want to do direct care anymore. That's what it's called, direct care. So I knew I wanted to take a break.
Combat, hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to take a break from that. So going on the insurance side of things was taking a break from direct care. But then eventually when I was down here in Dallas, I eventually did direct care again. Remember, I don't know if you remember, I was doing private practice for a bit. I did that for, I don't remember how long. And then I stopped that again. So
and that was literally one-on-one therapy.
That was literally one-on-one. That was the first time I did one-on-one therapy. It was under a company. Yeah. It wasn't my own company, but that also just solidified for me that I probably would never open my own practice. I just can't imagine doing therapy for the rest of my life.
So that was one-on-one. That's like what we see on TV. Whatever. The couches, sit down, tell your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why you can't see yourself doing that?
Oh, that's just completely draining. I can't see myself doing that.
That's more draining than you working with in the psych ward?
Yeah. Because in the psych ward, yes, I met with people one-on-one, but also they weren't there long, right? It's not like they were, some of them ended up being there a bit longer, but most of them were in and out within a week or less.
Okay.
When I have a patient, you're going through the whole process with them. And I found it to be a bit more emotionally draining. So, yeah, I couldn't do that full time.
So, I remember you saying you wanted to open up your own
practice.
Your own practice.
That was a goal at one point. But now if I open my own practice, it would be as how we run the cleaning business, like hiring therapists.
Everything comes back to the cleaning business, guys.
Yeah. I don't want to run it with me doing the therapy, but it could be my name as, this and hiring therapists under us.
It would be like
under me.
Hartzog and Co. Something like that.
I don't know.
Hartzog and Associates.
Hartzog and Healing something, but
Hartzog and Healing.
But yeah, it would be that type of flow. I don't think that I would just ever do private practice.
So you've been in your
full time.
You've been in your role for 8 years. Now.
I've been at the company for 8 years. I've been in my role for 5 years.
5 years. What do you feel like is the next step with your company?
I don't know. You ask them. I don't know what
feel like your next step is with your company. You've been there for 8, 9 years. People normally get stagnant and they want to do something new or change.
I think I'm pretty stagnant, but I also don't know that I want to change either. I don't think I'm at a point that I want to climb the ladder too much.
Of corporate?
Yeah, of corporate.
Why not?
Yeah. I guess I just see the possibilities that we've provided for ourselves, and it can be limiting at times. So we just have a lot going on, and I feel like my time could be spent towards our businesses and other things we have going on. So
let's make that transition now. So speaking of businesses, entrepreneurship, and I feel like you got bit by the bug.
What bug?
The entrepreneurship bug.
Oh.
Since we've been married, but you are technically an entrepreneur.
Correct. Which it's always weird to call ourselves that. Mm-hmm.
You're technically an entrepreneur, but then you're also
a podcaster.
You're a podcaster. You're looking for that 8 figures or 8,000 or 800 or $8.
Not $8. Get that to
on the podcast.
Only.
But you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur, but then also you are a mom, a brand new mom. So how do you manage that?
We're 18 months in. Is it still
we are 18 months in.
I guess in the grand scheme, it's brand new.
You're
when
an
your
entrepreneur.
Could be 50.
You have a full-time job and you are a full-time mom. How do you manage it all?
I manage it by having a nanny.
Okay.
Has helped tremendously.
Not here all day, every day, but
no, but it does help because I guess if you didn't have a nanny, then you'll put them in school. I guess it's the same type of thing, right? That has been helpful. I think also having a husband that doesn't feel like they're babysitting their kid is extremely helpful. All shade to the fathers that do. So having a partner in things, and how else do I balance it? Knowing that it's like it just has to get done. I know that sounds like that's not telling me how, and I understand that, but there's certain things that just has to get done, like recording a podcast or going to the gym. It requires me getting up earlier because it just has to get done. I don't know. That's how I would say I balance it. The delegation, which nanny or just help from you, and knowing that it has to get done. It's part of my responsibilities.
So what's harder for you in this season of life you're in? Entrepreneurship, your full-time job, or being a mom?
Harder.
What do you think is the hardest role that you have? The most difficult role right now?
Right now, the most difficult role will probably be entrepreneurship. I think when Alani was born, I would have said motherhood, because that transition, the breastfeeding, the being up late or being up early, whatever time you want to call it, that was a difficult season. And then figuring out your life, like you being like, okay, I'm somebody else outside of a mother. So that would definitely be a difficult season then. And that was just 18 months ago. Right now, entrepreneurship, because we are in a season of transitioning just our businesses and seeing how I fit into that, because you take majority of the role on when it comes to our businesses. So figuring that part out and then fitting it in while still having a 9-to-5. So that's what makes it, I think, the most difficult one.
Do you feel like you leaving a 9-to-5 will make these other parts easier?
Yes, because I will have more time. So the reason it feels a bit difficult because I have to squeeze things in at certain times.
Yeah.
So, errands and stuff have to be after work, have to be on the weekend, when it's busy, when it's traffic. I have to wake up at crack of dawn to go to gym. So if I'm able to put things during times that I would want it to be, it will feel differently. Because now I have to move at the pace of.
And the question they're going to ask me to ask you is, well, why are you still at your job?
Who going to ask that?
They always going to ask that. No matter what you do, they're going to ask that question.
Yeah. Well, at first, I would say I was still at my job because it was part of my identity. It was part of, like, I didn't, I went and got my master's. I had all this student loan. And so that was my response to it maybe a year to 2 years ago. Now I'm like, my master's isn't going anywhere. My license isn't going anywhere, even if I stop my job. As long as I do my continuing educations, I will always have that. And so I don't really have an answer as to why I'm still there, but hopefully within the next year or less, I won't be there. That's what I would say.
Year or less. That's a long time to figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay.
To put things in order, hopefully.
That's important. Like, you don't want to, we tell people all the time, is like, you want to have options for what you do. Now we create those options, but you still want to make sure you dot all your T's, you cross all your T's and dot all your I's, at least as much as possible. I think that's a big thing for us is we don't ever jump anything without making sure we've tried and make sure everything's in order. So
yeah, and even when it's in order, we're still like
still not going to be in order no matter what. So that's important to figure out, what your next steps are. So as you're in this season of motherhood, entrepreneurship, 9 to 5, being a wife, what do you feel like is most high, your highest priority right now? Because everything, I don't feel like it's a balancing act. I think in different seasons, some things are higher, some things are lower. What is the highest priority task? I think
motherhood is always a high priority because there's always different things that Alani is working towards or milestones that we're wanting her to reach. One, because she isn't in school, so she isn't in a daycare, I should say. It's not school. She isn't in a daycare, but so making sure that she is doing activities that can still provide her with the same thing a daycare would, making sure she's getting the knowledge, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, colors, the basics. That's always important. And then experiences. So I know people say, well, they're not going to remember. And frankly, I don't care. I'm big on experiences for myself. And I remember the experiences that I have with my child and being able to share that and her being able to explore the world. So I think that that's always a high priority. Entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily always feel like a high priority compared to that because, like I said, you do take a lot of the entrepreneurship side of things on. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Okay. And what are some things that Mrs. Hartzog wants to do outside of this brand that we have, whether it's the Hartrimony, whether it's the podcast?
Well, I don't know how I can go outside of the Hartrimony. I am part of
What are some things that you want to do on your own that you feel like what's some things that you like to do?
So this is the question we always talk about. I'm like, I don't have the answer. Like, what do you guys like to do?
I like to work out. Okay, I like to record content. I like to make content. Okay. I think I'm a creative. Like, that's my thing. But I think growing up, I always wanted to be an artist, right? I want to draw, and it kind of comes out here. Like, I'm an artist in a different way. So that's me, though. We're talking about you.
Yeah. I do like to work out as well.
Speaking of workout, make sure you grab your Celsius. I'm waiting for my sponsorship from them. Shout out to Celsius.
I do like to work out. I like to have fun. I like to travel a lot. So that would be a priority.
Oh, God. Here we go. Travel vlog coming soon from her.
Yeah. I like content, different types of content, though. I know your content is more business oriented. I just like the fun content.
My content is trending.
Fun. Not necessarily. That's okay. It doesn't have to be fun.
It depends on what you qualify as fun.
That's fun. That's fair. But yeah, I like to, hopefully one day I'll maybe doing content with Alani. Maybe she can get into some modeling. Yeah, I never have a list of things that I have in mind, but I don't know. I enjoy working out and I enjoy spending time with Alani and enjoy traveling.
Okay.
Those are things right there.
No, I mean, I think those are fun things overall.
Duh.
Creating content, traveling, of course, is fun. That's one thing you enjoy doing and you do all the time. And you won't.
You do all the time.
You do all the time and you won't stop doing it. So Looking forward to the travel content from you. Is there anything else that the people can look forward to from hearing from or seeing from Mrs. Hartzog herself?
Not at this time. I don't think there's anything else. Maybe I'll do a solo episode one day.
What would the episode be about?
No idea, but that would be a big challenge.
Can we challenge her to do a solo episode?
What would the solo episode be about? What questions would people have that they would even want to hear from me? I don't know.
Maybe we have a segment on motherhood and money, motherhood and entrepreneurship, like motherhood and 9 to 5, like whatever that is. I think that'd be good. If you got
somebody has a question, they can write it in the comment, and then maybe we can make an episode from it.
Yeah, you guys drop a question. If you listen to this full episode, drop a question from Mrs. Hartzog here. And actually, last question. Where does your name come from, Jhanilka?
What? It's made up. So
Can you elaborate on that? What does made up mean?
My mother made the name up. She always liked J and K names, and she made up the name Jhanilka. It has a JH because when you say it in Spanish, it is said as a Y. So, yeah, that's it. There's no meaning behind it. It's just simply Jhanilka, and in Spanish it would be Jhanilka.
Okay,
that's it.
We couldn't have any better guest to have on our podcast than Mrs. Jhanilka Hartzog.
It's not Jhanilka. It's not an H.
Is it?
Why?
So say it.
I did.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Jhanilka.
The JH becomes a Y sound.
Jhanilka Hartzog.
You're so American.
I'm wild American. But you guys check out. Make sure you drop us a 5-star review if you enjoyed this whole episode with just me interviewing Mrs. Hartzog here. Drop us a 5-star review. I think you guys learned a lot about who she is. Is there anything else you want to leave with the people?
Not that I can think of. I'm sure there's more to me that you didn't dig into, but that's fine. You can't get it all, one episode.
We could definitely do another one. I'm always open to practicing my interviewing skills. So appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you next week on the More Than a Side Hustle podcast.
Thanks for having me. My own podcast.
All right, guys. Peace out.
Bye.